The day I destroyed my husband wasn't marked by screams or broken glass. It happened in perfect silence as I watched 12 years of lies collapse in his eyes when he opened my anniversary gift. I had spent 3 months meticulously preparing the leather portfolio that now trembled in his manicured hands, documenting every betrayal, every secret bank account, and every moment he spent with his other family just 90 minutes away. This is the story of how I, a forensic accountant who traded her career for a marriage built on deception, orchestrated the most devastating revenge on the man who thought he was too clever to be caught. If you love stories where the underestimated finally get their perfect revenge, smash that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Nexus of Revenge brings you daily stories of calculated justice that will make your own family dramas pale in comparison. Watch until the end to see exactly how I left the man who controlled everything, including me, completely shattered and penniless in a single night. I promise what happens next will make every betrayed spouse wish they had my patience. Now let me take you back 15 years to when I stood radiant in white, vowing forever to a man who was already planning a life divided, to when I still believed I was the only Mrs. Ainsley. I met Theodore Ainsley at a charity fundraiser where I was volunteering my forensic accounting skills to help identify financial discrepancies for a non-profit. He approached me afterward, impressed by my presentation on hiding assets. Little did I know he was taking mental notes for later. "You made fraud detection sound like poetry," he said, his charming smile reaching his eyes. "I'd like to learn more about how you catch people who think they're too smart for the system." 6 months later, we were engaged, and I was falling in love with the ambitious financial advisor who seemed to value my professional insights as much as my company. After our wedding, featured in Boston Magazine no less, we purchased a Victorian home in Brookline that needed extensive renovation. Theo insisted we could afford it, and I trusted him completely. "Your inheritance would be better invested in our property," he suggested one evening. "Real estate in this neighborhood appreciates faster than those conservative funds your grandfather chose." I agreed, transferring control of the substantial inheritance my grandparents had left me. After all, Theo was the professional wealth manager whose client list included local politicians and business leaders. Who was I to question his financial wisdom? Our social calendar filled quickly. Dinner parties for Theo's clients in our meticulously restored home. Charity galas where we were photographed alongside Boston's elite. Weekend brunches with other aspiring couples in our circle. From the outside, we were the perfect power couple. Him with his growing wealth management firm, me with my specialized forensic skills. When Theo suggested I scale back my career to consulting status to accommodate our increasing social obligations, I hesitated. "You don't need the stress of full-time work," he said, his hand on mine. "Your expertise is wasted on mundane cases anyway. This way you can maintain your credentials while we focus on expanding my business." Again, I agreed. I maintained a small client list and volunteered teaching financial literacy to women in transition, divorcees, widows, career changers. I told myself it was fulfilling enough. My father had been a military cartographer, moving our family across 5 countries before I turned 16. From him, I inherited 3 distinctive traits that would later become crucial to my survival: extraordinary patience, a photographic memory for numbers, and an unusual ability to compartmentalize emotions. My mother had abandoned her career as a concert pianist to follow him, whispering a warning to me when I was 14. Never build your life around someone else's dreams. I wish I'd listened. 3 years into our marriage, we began trying for children. After my 3rd miscarriage, I fell into a depression that I now recognize as the beginning of Theo's more calculated deceptions. While I recovered emotionally, he began spending more time away, claiming he was expanding his business to Providence, Rhode Island, just 90 minutes away. "It's an untapped market," he explained. "I'll need to stay overnight 3 days a week until the new office is established." I threw myself into the creation of a greenhouse attached to our Victorian. There, I cultivated rare orchids that required the same precision and patience that had once fueled my forensic work. The Paphiopedilum venustum became my specialty. Lady slipper orchids with distinctive striped petals and complex growing requirements. They thrived under my methodical care while my marriage quietly withered. Financial discussions grew increasingly one-sided. When I questioned a large withdrawal, Theo would kiss my forehead and say, "It's just business expansion costs. Trust me, the returns will be worth it." When I suggested rejoining my firm full-time, he'd remind me of my delicate constitution after the miscarriages. Our joint accounts were managed exclusively by him, with monthly allowances deposited into my personal account. As our 15th anniversary approached, I decided to surprise Theo with a weekend at the lake house where we'd spent our honeymoon. While reviewing our insurance papers to make sure we were covered during the trip, I found an unusual receipt tucked between the pages, a children's clothing store in Providence, with Theo's signature on the credit card slip. It seemed odd, but perhaps it was a gift for a client's child? I set it aside, unaware that this small discovery would be the first thread that, when pulled, would unravel 12 years of perfect deception. The children's clothing receipt nagged at me. Why was it hidden in our insurance documents? When Theo left for his 3-day business trip to Providence, I decided to update our homeowner's insurance policy while planning our anniversary surprise. That's when I found documentation for a property in Providence I'd never heard of. Assuming it was related to Theo's business expansion, I called our insurance company for clarification. "Mr. Ainsley listed this as his primary residence," the agent said, confusion in her voice matching my own. "The Brookline property is categorized as a secondary home." My forensic instincts, dormant but not dead, awakened instantly. I thanked the agent and hung up, my mind racing. Primary residence? When had Theo made this change, and why? That evening, I retrieved my laptop, not the one Theo had given me for household management, but my professional one, stored in a locked cabinet in my greenhouse. I began a methodical investigation, using access credentials Theo thought I'd forgotten. Credit card statements revealed a pattern. Children's clothing, school supplies, family restaurant meals, all in Providence, spanning years. The purchases matched school calendars, back-to-school shopping in August, holiday gifts in December, summer camp payments in June. I hired a private investigator, using funds from my personal consulting work that Theo didn't monitor. 3 days later, I received a digital folder of photographs. Theo, at a school function, his arm around a beautiful woman with chestnut hair. Beside them stood 2 children, a girl about 11 and a boy around 9, both with Theo's distinctive grey-blue eyes and cleft chin. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I spread the photographs across our bedroom floor, the bedroom we'd shared for 15 years, while he built another life just 90 minutes away. The image of Theo cutting a birthday cake with "Happy Birthday, Dad," written in blue frosting, burned into my retinas. The timestamp showed it was taken during one of my post-miscarriage hospital stays. If you've ever had your reality shattered in an instant, you know the physical symptoms: the metallic taste in your mouth, the ringing in your ears, the sensation that gravity has suddenly increased. In that moment, I understood why people describe betrayal as a physical blow. I took a deep breath and did what I do best. I compartmentalized my emotions and focused on the financial aspects. This wasn't just emotional betrayal. There would be a paper trail of financial deception as well. I was right. Over the next week, I uncovered the elaborate financial architecture Theo had constructed to support his dual life. He had systematically diverted funds from our joint investments, using complex financial structures that would have escaped notice by anyone without my specific expertise. More disturbingly, he had leveraged my inheritance as collateral for business loans without my knowledge, putting my financial security at significant risk. The betrayal extended beyond his second family. I discovered Theo had recently been transferring additional assets to protected accounts I couldn't access. The timing aligned perfectly with our upcoming anniversary, suggesting he might be planning to reveal the truth, or more likely, abandon me after securing his financial position. The worst discovery came in the form of emails between Theo and Harrison Webb, our financial advisor and Theo's longtime friend. They discussed minimizing financial exposure in the separation, while ensuring I remained financially comfortable but not capable of causing problems. They referred to me as a liability to be managed rather than a wife of 15 years. Like this video right now, if you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted completely. I want to know I'm not alone in experiencing that specific kind of betrayal that makes you question every memory you thought was real. The emotional toll manifested physically. I lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks. Sleep became elusive. I'd lie awake cataloguing every moment of our marriage, recontextualizing every business trip, every late night at the office, every client emergency. In my greenhouse, surrounded by my orchids, I allowed myself to break down. Silent tears while misting the Paphiopedilums. Quiet, gasping sobs while checking soil pH levels. But only there, only alone, and only for precisely measured periods of time. When I stepped out of my greenhouse, I was composed, focused, and increasingly determined. For 3 weeks, I maintained our normal routines. I prepared Theo's favourite meals when he was home. I asked about his business trips with apparent interest. I mentioned our upcoming anniversary with excitement, watching him carefully as he promised to make it special and memorable. That night, as Theo kissed me goodbye before leaving for his business trip, I smiled and wished him safe travels. He had no idea he'd just kissed a woman who no longer existed. The trusting wife had died, replaced by someone he wouldn't recognize, someone he should fear. I'd love to know your thoughts on what you would do in this situation. Would you confront immediately? Or plan methodically like I did? Drop a comment below. Your perspective might help others facing similar betrayals. The catalyst moment came the next morning. While searching through Theo's home office files, I discovered he had been using my signature stamp to authorize financial documents without my knowledge. This wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. Criminal deception that had put my financial future and professional reputation at risk. I stood before the antique mirror that had belonged to my grandmother, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back had always been patient, accommodating, willing to shrink herself to fit into the spaces Theo allowed. In that moment, something crystallized within me. I will not be erased, I whispered to my reflection, noticing how my habitual placid expression had hardened into something unrecognizable, something dangerous. My advantage lay in Theo's underestimation. He believed I was financially naive, technologically inept, and emotionally dependent. He didn't realize I had maintained my professional network, or that my consulting work had kept my skills razor sharp. He had no idea I still had access to all our financial accounts and passwords, which he'd never bothered to change, confident in my blind trust. I called Zara Okafor, my closest friend since college and a brilliant corporate attorney. I need your help, I said simply, and I need absolute discretion. Over the next 3 months, I executed a meticulous plan. First, I secured copies of all financial records, creating a comprehensive map of Theo's legitimate and hidden assets. I hired a forensic IT specialist who recovered deleted emails and financial transfers from Theo's home office computer. Using legal mechanisms that wouldn't trigger immediate alerts, I began transferring my inheritance from joint holdings into protected accounts. I reconnected with former colleagues, positioning myself for a return to full-time forensic accounting. The preparation wasn't without challenges. One evening, Theo returned home unexpectedly while I was photographing documents in his office. I heard his key in the front door and quickly replaced the files, opening my laptop to display anniversary party ideas instead. "You're working late," he said, surprise evident in his voice. I smiled, turning the screen toward him. "Just planning something special for our anniversary. 15 years deserves a proper celebration, don't you think? Relief replaced his suspicion. Don't go overboard, he cautioned. Something intimate would be better. Just the two of us. Of course, I agreed. That's exactly what I was thinking. A significant setback occurred when Harrison detected my digital investigation and warned Theo that someone had been accessing his protected files. Theo immediately changed passwords and moved sensitive documents. I pivoted quickly, feigning increased interest in our anniversary celebration to allay his suspicions while finding alternative routes to the information. The emotional cost weighed heavily. Each night after Theo left for his work apartment, I would sit in our garden, allowing myself exactly 1 hour to experience the grief, rage, and betrayal before locking those emotions away to maintain my focus. With Zara's help, I developed a comprehensive 3-phase revenge plan that would protect me legally while ensuring Theo faced the full consequences of his actions. Are you sure about this? Zara asked during our final planning session. Once you start this, there's no going back. I touched the orchid pendant I always wore, a gift from my grandmother. He took 12 years of my life based on lies. He used my inheritance to build a family with another woman. He discussed me as a problem to be managed. My voice remained calm, which seemed to unsettle Zara more than anger would have. Yes, I'm sure. Our 15th anniversary was approaching. The leather portfolio had been prepared. The timing had been calculated precisely. Everything was in place. Remember, Zara cautioned, emotional control is essential. Don't give him any ammunition. I smiled at my friend's concern. Emotional control is the one thing Theo taught me well. I spent our anniversary day preparing Theo's favourite meal, filet mignon with truffle butter, roasted asparagus, and Duchess potatoes. I selected a bottle of Chateau Margaux 2005 from our wine cellar, a vintage he particularly prized. I wore the sapphire earrings he had given me for our 10th anniversary and a black dress he had once complimented. Everything had to appear perfect, normal, special but not suspicious. My revenge unfolded in carefully orchestrated phases. Phase 1 had already been completed. Financial protection. Weeks earlier, working with Zara, I had legally secured my financial position. I recovered my inheritance using documentation of unauthorized use as leverage, established independent credit, and gathered evidence of Theo's financial fraud. Phase 2. Truth revelation would begin tonight. My anniversary gift was the custom-made leather portfolio containing comprehensive documentation of Theo's dual life. Photographs, financial records, property deeds, and birth certificates of his children. What Theo didn't know was that identical portfolios had been prepared for strategic delivery. At precisely 8:30 p.m., as we would be finishing dinner, couriers would deliver these portfolios to Adeline, his Providence wife, Harrison Webb, and key business associates. Phase 3, professional consequences, was set in motion through careful preparation. Using my forensic accounting expertise, I had identified several instances where Theo had skirted regulatory compliance in his financial practice. I approached his business partners directly, offering discretion in exchange for a buyout of Theo's share of the firm at a reduced valuation. At 7 p.m, Theo arrived home, looking somewhat distracted but making an effort to appear celebratory. He presented me with an expensive sapphire necklace, selected not for my preference for emeralds but for its investment value. I thanked him warmly, allowing him to fasten it around my neck. Dinner proceeded with pleasant conversation. I asked about his business, and he shared sanitized updates while I nodded with practiced interest. We reminisced about our early days together, and I marveled at how easily the lies flowed from both of us now. At 8:15 p.m., as I served his favorite crème brûlée, Theo's phone rang. He glanced at it, frowned slightly, and silenced it. "Harrison," he explained. "It can wait. Tonight is about us." I smiled, knowing Harrison was calling to warn him. I had anticipated this possibility. Harrison's loyalty to Theo was strong, and there was a chance he might detect the approaching storm. This was the almost fails moment I had prepared for. "Before dessert, I want to give you my gift," I said, retrieving the leather portfolio from the sideboard drawer. It was bound in soft black leather with his initials embossed in silver. "Happy anniversary, Theo." He looked surprised but pleased. "You didn't have to get me anything special. The dinner is perfect." "Oh, but this is special," I said softly. "I put a lot of thought into it." As Theo opened the portfolio, his expression changed from curiosity to confusion to shock. His hands trembled as he flipped through the meticulously organized evidence of his double life. Colour drained from his face as he realized the comprehensive nature of my discovery. "I've known for 3 months," I said quietly, "and by now, so does everyone else." On cue, his phone began ringing insistently. Then my phone. Then the landline. The synchronized deliveries had been completed. "What have you done?" he whispered, his voice strangled. "I've revealed the truth," I replied calmly. "To everyone." Theo's shock transformed into desperate negotiation. "Margot, we can work this out. There's an explanation. For 12 years of deception, for having children with another woman while I grieved our miscarriages, for planning to leave me financially compromised," my voice remained even. "I'd love to hear that explanation." His phone continued ringing. Adeline's name flashed on the screen, then his business partner's, then Harrison's. Each call went unanswered as Theo stared at me in disbelief. "You've always underestimated me, Theo," I said, rising from the table. "That was your mistake." Theo's desperation escalated as the implications became clear. "You can't do this. You'll destroy everything." "No, Theo. You destroyed everything the moment you decided one life, one family, one wife wasn't enough for you." He lunged for the portfolio, but I had anticipated this reaction. "There are copies with your business partners, with Harrison, with Adeline, with my attorney. It's over." "What do you want?" he demanded, his composure shattered. "Money. The house. Name your price." I picked up my wineglass, studying the deep red liquid. "I don't want anything from you, Theo. I already have what I need, the truth. And now, so does everyone else." The fallout was swift and comprehensive. Adeline, armed with identical documentation, immediately filed for full custody and financial support for their children. She called me the next day. A surreal conversation between two women who had unknowingly shared a husband for over a decade. "Did you know about me?" she asked, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "Not until 3 months ago," I answered honestly. "Did you know about me?" "He told me you were his ex-wife who couldn't accept the divorce," she said, "that you were unstable and refused to sign the papers." We shared a moment of silent recognition, two intelligent women who had been expertly manipulated by the same man. Theo's business partners, concerned about regulatory scrutiny and reputational damage, activated the emergency clause in their partnership agreement. Harrison, protecting his own interests, distanced himself completely, providing additional evidence of financial irregularities to secure his own position. Within weeks, Theo had lost both families, his business, his home, and his social standing. The financial protections I had established left him unable to access funds he'd believed secure. The legal consequences of his financial mismanagement loomed, with regulatory bodies launching investigations based on anonymous tips. When Theo came to the house, now legally secured in my name, to collect his belongings, he made one last attempt to negotiate. "We could have worked something out, Margot," he said, bitterness replacing his usual charm. "You didn't have to destroy me," I corrected him calmly. "I didn't destroy you, Theo. I simply stopped protecting you from the consequences of your choices." I returned to my forensic accounting career full-time, specializing in financial fraud cases with a particular focus on hidden assets in divorce cases. I sold the Victorian home and moved to a modern apartment overlooking the harbour, taking only my orchids from my previous life. Perhaps most surprising was the cautious friendship that developed between Adeline and me. United by our shared experience of betrayal, we occasionally met for coffee, navigating a complex relationship built on mutual respect for how each had handled the revelation. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment, but about restoration. Not of what was lost, but of who you are. In the greenhouse I established on my new apartment's balcony, I cultivated a rare black orchid, a symbol of the transformation my pain had undergone, from vulnerability to a singular, unusual strength. The patience that had once made me an ideal partner in Theo's deception had become the virtue that enabled my meticulously planned freedom. I had waited, watched, and planned until the perfect moment to reclaim my life. Family loyalty has boundaries that, once crossed, can never be restored. The trust I gave freely for 15 years was destroyed in a moment, but the strength I found in its absence will last a lifetime. If my story resonated with you, please subscribe to Nexus of Revenge and share this video with someone who needs to hear that patience and preparation can be more powerful than immediate confrontation.